talk to me a little bit about what's worrying the Middle East and the world, developments in Syria's Idlib. Are we risking another migration crisis from Syria?
Unfortunately, yes. Indeed, what goes on in the Middle East, especially in Syria and especially in Idlib, is not that good. We have been, as Turkey, we have been trying real hard indeed for the last couple of years to keep the peace intact indeed in that part of the region. Remember from Astana process with Russia and then getting Iran into the picture and having the Sochi memorandum in place, we were able to somehow get the secured area, kind of like clearing up that area from the terrorist groups and kind of like providing a safe haven for the civilians out there. Unfortunately, the recent attacks of the Syrian regime made too many and too much civilian catastrophes. More than 1,000 maybe people have already died.
Vice President, how's the European stance on this issue?
Unfortunately, I'm not sure whether there is a European stance out there or not. Because Europe is so much into its own issues in a way that they have forgotten the migrants or the issues that goes on in Idlib or in Europe. The way the Europe looks at it is maybe mostly from the foreign fighters' point of view. So foreign fighters is an issue out there, but all the countries, especially European countries as well, have to deal their own foreign fighters, not in Idlib, not in Syria, but somehow isolate them from there and make sure that they deal with their own foreign fighters through their own governments and their own forces. Regarding the Idlib case, with the attacks of the regime to the civilian side, claiming that they are attacking the terrorists, but indiscriminate bombing to everywhere, bombing hospitals, schools, civilians. So what we have is somewhere near between 600 to 1 million IDPs in the region. So as Turkey, we do have already 3.7 million refugees, Syrian refugees. So Turkey is the largest refugee hosting country. Now we are facing another risk of having another million if the Idlib issue goes on. So Europe has to understand this. The message is real clear out there. Turkey is not and will not be able to host any more refugees coming from the Idlib side. Europe has to face that risk. So Turkey cannot burden that share by alone anymore.
Vice President, what happens to the jihadists in Syria? If Russia bombs them, where do they go?
Well, as I said, it's not a matter of jihadists or others indeed. What it is radical terrorists. The way we describe terrorism is, we do not, as Turkey, discriminate terror by religion, by geography, by whatever it is, ethnicity. Terror is terror. Terrorist is terrorist. So those jihadists, whatever you want to call them, they are terrorists. Foreign fighters, those are basically coming from all over the world, including the European countries, and from everywhere indeed. So,
but Vice President, there's a stronghold of terrorism that is in Syria. If they get bombed by Russia, is there a danger that they spread to other countries? Do they spread to your country?
Rather than spreading them to the other countries, the best way is somehow to get them in somewhere in Syria, make sure that the source countries somehow get hold of their own terrorist groups and deal with it themselves. Just because of their own terrorists, the civilians of the Syrians, the Syrian civilians should not pay the price for them. So there's no, think about a kid at school, think about a patient in the hospital. what do they have to do with the terror or terrorist groups? So they are paying the price on behalf of the source countries. So it has to be dealt with another strategy, indeed, another way, another policy. Indeed. So this is not the right way of getting rid of terror or terrorists. Indeed, this will increase the level of terrorism, as it does so far throughout all regional conflicted areas.
Vice President, talk to me about your relationship with Russia. Is Turkey serious about entering in a relationship where either you buy or jointly develop fifth-generation weapons with Russia?
Well, it's not a matter of weapons or not, issue. Our relations with Russia is the way, it's the same way that our relations with Italy, for example, or our relations with Germany or any other country around the world. We are two neighbors, and Turkey is a NATO member, and we are committed to our NATO member allies and committed to our obligations at NATO. Indeed, Turkey is one of the NATO members who support the most and a candidate country for EU. So no problem from that point of view. So with Russia, we have not only one-way relation out there, indeed. It's a kind of like multi, we have in many areas in terms of having relations. Most of the tourists, let's say we receive most of the tourists from Russia. So
of course, but on the fifth-generation weapons, which is a lot of things that people want to know about, how close are you to actually either signing something or looking at intensifying that relationship for this specific issue?
It's not the fifth-generation weapons or not. Maybe what you are talking about might be S-400 issue. S-400, it's very clear to the entire world, indeed.
Okay.
Turkey has the right to defend herself. So you know how the area is, how fragile it is. So you do not leave it to time. You have to make very decisive decision indeed. You cannot play into time in that region. So Turkey is a safe haven, even though what goes on around it. So we have to keep our country basically cleared from the terrorists and also attacks from any other country or whatever it is, especially from the terrorists. So S-400 in that sense was a need for Turkey, or defense systems was a need for Turkey and is still a need for Turkey. So we did ask Patriots, remember, from the United States. We were not agreed on the details. So then Russia came into the picture. So they have they've come up with a good deal. So what it is, relationship-wise, it's a business relation, trade relation, nothing more than that.
Vice President, how would you describe your relationship with the U.S. right now?
Likewise, basically what Turkey does is Turkey looks at it from its own interests. U.S. is our strategic partner. That's how we see U.S. Like Russia, with U.S., there are issues, there are areas that we agree, like the way that we are trying to settle down a safe, secured
corridor.
Zone or corridor in this northern part of Syria, but we have certain parts that we disagree. So that's how our relations are. And indeed, like this week, I guess, one of the ministers, especially trade minister of U.S. is in Turkey. Our goal is to increase the level of trade to $100 billion. So the two presidents, President Erdogan and President Trump, has a very good relations and very strong ties. Communication channels are always open. They too do understand each other, but somehow I guess the U.S. side are having some problems to kind of like bring that understanding to the lower level of the bureaucracy. So that's how we see it indeed.
So you think as a president...
We still are strategic partners, and that's the way we see it. there might be areas that we might disagree, which is normal.
Vice President, can you just quickly elaborate on that? So you think that the presidents see eye to eye more, but then the bureaucracy doesn't?
That's how we look at it indeed.
Okay.
In the areas, most of the areas indeed, that the two presidents agree. Somehow when we get into the details, either it takes too long, or it doesn't go any further indeed. So that's how we see it. And we make it very clear to our counterparts as well indeed.